Hello, everyone. This is Helen Ivisovich from Newcastle, California. Uh, Starting with the introduction to what will become a book called Walking the Walk Jesus Style. I want to give you a bit of background on how this book came into my heart. And as I explained in a previous video, if you watched it, I'll be doing like 10 to 12 minute teachings. Each one eventually will become a chapter in the book. So they've scientifically shown that people, and I'm included with it. If I'm going to go to YouTube and watch something at night, sometimes, 10 minutes, okay. 20 minutes, just flip. We have maybe a 12-minute span on it. So I'm going to stay in those time constraints because I want you to be able, you can listen to 2 or 3 if you're really interested. You can listen to 1. But this is the introduction to a book, Walking the Walk Jesus Style. Now, I want to give you the background story to it as to how this book began and what God had done and where I was when these things began to be revealed to me. Now, they occurred in 1982. I had so many supernatural experiences in the 2 years that I attended Rhema Bible Training Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had no idea that those experiences would probably sustain me as I'm turning 50 years old in my walk with God. Those experiences are still the primary focal points of my life, in not only what God was doing in my life, but what He would be doing in the future. In 1982, I was in the summer between my first and second year of school, volunteering to work for a pastor at the church that I was attending. During that summer break, the Copeland Ministries had their Southwest Believers Convention. Now, for many of you that are old enough to remember, it was the worldwide communion service with Brother Copeland and with Pastor Paul Yonggi Cho. And for those of you that are young and you don't actually remember, let me give you background on that. There was a very, very intelligent man named Phil McGee. Phil McGee did not graduate high school. They thought he would never be successful, and subsequently he went into the U.S. military. And the military discovered that he was a genius in electronics, and they educated him, and he became a director of NASA. Phil McGee worked on all of the satellites that were being broadcast way back in the olden days, when the satellites would cover the earth and there'd be like an interruption. I know this sounds really old. There would be a time frame where one satellite would move out of position and you'd lose signal until another one came into position. And you'd hear that that horrible sound. This is way back in the beginning of when we all had access to the internet. Well, Phil McGee was given by God the algorithm for synchronous orbit. He was in attendance at the Southwest Believers Convention as I was. Now, I'm one of these people who, when I'm going to a meeting, I go to the meeting, I get there on Monday, I stand in line, I want the full experience. Well, I found myself a seat and then I went into the prayer room. What I didn't know was the people leading the prayer would be some that had come out of the secrets of intercession, or in other words, old-time prayers that had been praying for 40 and 50 years, that as a young believer and minister, I had just been exposed to their ministry. They closed the doors on Monday so that only the people that had been there on Monday could go to the subsequent meetings. Now that, of course, we could go from glory to glory because we were a corporate assembly of people that had been at the previous meeting, so he could just build and build and build. We would go at 6 o'clock in the morning, we would pray for the morning meeting, we would pray during lunch, and we would pray at the end of the meeting, and then we would go home, get some sleep, and come back and do it again. Well, on day 6, the final meeting was the worldwide communion with Paul Yonggi Cho, Brother Copeland, and we had done our pre-service prayer. And when we came into the meeting, I sat next to Phil McGee. And he began to talk to me about a few things in the spirit and shared with me about the satellites and how God had anointed him with the gifting, how President Bill Clinton had called him when the satellites got out of sync, and, you know, a little bit of the background on the technology, which, to be honest, I like science. So I was really intrigued and really grateful. And, I'm excited. This is the first time in the world that the satellites would all be linked, and it was a communion service. And I didn't know until recently that the little cups and the wafers that we pass out at church, they were invented and manufactured for that service. So the first time that people got the little cup and the wafer, first time that the entire world was covered with us praying, was 1982 World Communion Service under the teaching of Brother Kenneth E. Hagin, T.L. Osborne, and David Paul Yonggi Cho. So we were so high in the Holy Spirit that we looked intoxicated to people when we came into our seats. And actually people were praying that we'd get saved, which was hysterical and made me laugh even more. But we had come together, we had worked together, we were ready. And then when it came time for communion, there was the signal began to break. And Phil Halverson, who was running the meeting, he goes, everyone gather in. And we focused in, and we could see the little demonic forces on the satellite beams, and we were speaking to them, and then all of a sudden the signal became clear, and we received communion all over the world. Now, I can't tell you what an amazing feeling it is to be a Christian in an arena filled with Christians, not knowing that I was on the cutting edge of technology, that it was the first time that things had happened. It was overwhelming, and the presence of God fell, and I was so in love with Jesus. I mean, I left that building, and I don't think my feet touched the ground. As I walked back to my hotel room, and I was sharing a room with a friend of mine who unfortunately had not been in the prayer meetings, I couldn't go to sleep when I got in my room. And I lied on my bed, and I started singing in tongues. Yidamashi deleakai udeleidi andelamashaiki uraye. I was floating. And when I opened my eyes, Jesus was standing there. And he said, "Come with me, let's go to the Father." And when he took my hand, I went inside him. So if I went to look at my hand, I saw his. If I looked down at my feet, they were his. And he's walking me into the throne room of God to do kingdom business with the Father. And if anything, I'm honest. I'm walking in him and somehow conscious that I'm in him, but we're going in to see the Father. And I'm hoping the Father doesn't actually see me. Have you ever been in a meeting where there's a prophet, and the prophet is prophesying things to people, and you're all like, yeah, do me. And then they start getting really personal and accurate, and you're like, that's okay. Just, keep going. I'm not here. You're not looking at them. I had that moment. Remember, I'm young in the Lord. I'm young in ministry. And I'm thinking, I wonder if God knows. I know, how hilarious. I wonder if God knows I'm here. Well, I was in him, and I realized this is what the Father sees. When he sees Jesus, but I'm in Jesus, and I'm doing kingdom business with the Father, but the Father's doing kingdom business with the Son. And there you have the legal aspects of covenant. Walking the walk Jesus style is a way to elevate your prayer life so that you are actually praying in the presence of the Father, in Jesus Christ where we are hid, doing kingdom business in your righteousness, your authority, and your power. And this book basically is a journey through the book of John. Now I'm going to end this lesson 1 because I've been talking for 10 minutes. So I'm disciplining myself to stay within the time frame and either catch lesson 2 later or click over to the next lesson and then watch where we go from here. God bless you. See you in lesson 2.